Today, we're taking a look at a really interesting modern interpretation of a classic text. It's called Kamasutra Simplified, a modern take by Vatsyani Whisper.
And, when people hear Kama Sutra, their minds often jump straight to, well, the positions, right?
Exactly, that's the common image. But this deep dive, our aim here is to uncover something, well, much richer, much deeper.
Absolutely, because that common idea, it really misses the point of the original text, or at least what this modern author argues was the point. It's about artful living, really savoring life.
A kind of philosophy of pleasure and connection, way beyond just the physical mechanics.
Precisely. So this author, Vatsyani Whisper, calls her book a sensual companion, not a sex manual. And
Right.
that shift in framing is, I think, really key.
Okay, so our mission today isn't about mastering techniques. It's more about pulling out the core insights, yeah? Exploring pleasure, sensuality, intimacy, but from this, gentler perspective.
It's an invitation, really, to slow down, reconnect
Hmm.
with your body, your breath, maybe with a partner.
And the book's structure actually gives us a nice roadmap. Starts with an intro, whispers from the past, then part one, the inner union, part two, the dance of lovers, and so on. We'll mostly focus on that foundation today, that inner union part.
Sounds good. That first part, Whispers from the Past, it does a great job setting the stage. It reminds you the original wasn't just about,
Acrobatics.
yeah. More like the poetry of presence, the philosophy of pleasure, this whole dance of intimacy. It's trying to reclaim that depth.
And calling it a sensual companion, that really shifts the focus away from performance, maybe?
I think so. And the very first message is just slow down, which in our world feels almost radical.
It really does. Okay, so let's get into part I then. The inner union. Chapter 1 is the philosophy of pleasure. What's the core idea there?
Well, it starts by placing kama, which is often translated as pleasure or desire in its original context in ancient India. It was considered one of the main aims of life, alongside dharma, duty, artha, prosperity, and moksha, liberation.
So not something secondary or sinful?
Not at all. It was integral to a well-rounded life. But, and this is crucial, pleasure wasn't just defined narrowly as physical or sexual.
Right. The book talks about emotional pleasure, aesthetic pleasure, even spiritual.
Exactly. Pleasure as awareness, as presence. The example given is really savoring a mango, or listening to rain, or just watching your lover breathe. It's about being fully there for the experience.
That feels very different from, say, the kind of dopamine hits we get from our phones or constant distraction.
Mm-hmm. The author draws a sharp distinction there between that deep, embodied pleasure and, well, modern addictive loops. Is about quality of attention.
And it leaves you with this question, doesn't it? Something like, where does your body whisper yes, and where have you stopped listening?
Yeah. It's a direct invitation to tune back into your own sensory world, which many of us, I think, have kind of muted.
Definitely. Okay, so that leads into chapter 2, sacred sensuality in a fast world. How does that build on the idea of pleasure?
It contrasts sensuality with maybe just raw indulgence. Sensuality here is about presence over excess. It's not about consuming more, but experiencing more fully.
So the Kama Sutra, in this view, becomes a guide to waking up all the senses.
That's the idea. It promotes this concept of slow sensuality.
And the examples are quite evocative, like feeling a lover's breath on your collarbone, or the ritual of lighting incense, or that little pause, that hesitation before a kiss.
Those moments, yeah. They highlight how intentionality and slowing down can amplify the experience. It makes ordinary moments feel, well, sacred.
And it argues this slowness isn't some luxury retreat thing, right? It's accessible, like someone mindfully stirring chai, or really looking at your partner, or even just undressing with gratitude.
It's framed as a kind of gentle rebellion against the constant rush, finding the sacred in the slow, everyday moments.
I like that. Okay, chapter 3. Mapping desire, the geography of the body. This sounds intriguing.
It is. It encourages us to view the body not just as, anatomy, but as a sacred map, an ecosystem of sensation.
Moving beyond just the obvious erogenous zones.
Exactly. It talks about places like the nape of the neck, the curve of the lower back, the inside of the wrist, calling them zones of invocation, places that come alive with focused, gentle attention.
So the emphasis isn't on technique, like do this here, but more on attention. Unhurried exploration.
Precisely. It's about presence, not performance. And it highlights that everyone's map is different. Our cartographies of pleasure, as the book calls them, are unique. What ignites one person might do nothing for another.
Which really underlines the need for communication and paying attention to your partner's actual responses.
Absolutely. And it offers a specific practice, the cartography practice. It involves creating a safe space, exploring non-verbally with hands, starting gently, maybe from the feet or hands, and then just reflecting quietly afterwards.
Sounds quite intimate.
The idea is that mapping the body with reverence helps you connect more deeply, maybe even touch the soul, as the book poetically puts it.
Okay, that connects nicely to Chapter 4, Erotic Mind, Mystic Heart. This brings in the mental and emotional aspects.
Yes, it argues that desire often starts in the mind, doesn't it? A glance, a shared silence, a fantasy, long before touch.
Right, the power of thought, imagination, feeling.
It emphasizes how potent these are, a whisper, recalling a shared memory, even just a pause filled with meaning. These can be incredibly rousing.
The mind as the true lover, it says.
Yeah, and imagination is the oldest aphrodisiac. But it's not just about the mind. It balances this with the heart, the mystic heart.
What does that mean, mystic heart?
It suggests that touch becomes sacred, becomes mystic intimacy, when it's infused with genuine presence, care, and emotional connection. It's about the quality of the connection, not just the physical act.
And it links this to Tantra as well.
It does. It draws parallels being awake, fully present, seeing the divine in your partner, really entering their world with empathy.
There's a practice here too, right? The eyes of devotion.
Yes. Simple but powerful. Facing your partner, maintaining eye contact, breathing together, maybe mirroring each other, touching your own heart.
Just being seen. The eroticism of simply being seen.
Exactly. Which requires vulnerability, and that brings us neatly to Chapter 5.
The sacred no boundaries as erotic intelligence. This feels incredibly important.
It really is. It tackles boundaries head on, arguing that feeling safe is the absolute foundation for desire to even arise, let alone flourish.
And it reframes no not as rejection, but as sacred, as self-expression.
Precisely. A sacred expression of self. Not a shutting down, but a defining of what feels right now. And when that no is genuinely heard and respected, trust deepens immensely.
Which paradoxically makes the yes mean more.
Exactly. The yes becomes more potent, more authentic, because it comes from a place of genuine choice and safety. Boundaries aren't walls, the book suggests, but doors defining the space where connection feels good and wanted.
And they can heighten pleasure by creating polarity.
That's the idea. Knowing the limits, feeling the safety within those limits, can actually intensify the experience. It offers the sacred pause practice for this.
How does that work?
Just pausing during intimacy, checking in. Do you want this? Is this okay? And importantly, practicing receiving a no gracefully, and also practicing saying no clearly. Celebrating the no is something that actually strengthens the container for the yes.
That makes a lot of sense. The freedom to say no allows for a fuller surrender into yes.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, the last chapter in this inner union section is Chapter 6, When Stillness Becomes Foreplay.
Ah, yes. Back to that theme of slowness, but now applied directly to intimacy. It positions stillness not as boredom or inaction, but as a profound form of connection.
Another rebellion against the fast pace.
Yes, a revolution in intimacy, it calls it, challenging the idea that intimacy is always about movement, about reaching a goal or a peak.
Suggesting that eroticism exists in the pauses, the anticipation.
Absolutely. Savoring the journey, not just rushing to the destination. And that slowness itself communicates so much. I see you. I'm present. I'm not in a hurry.
It allows space to notice the subtler things too, right? Like a soft breath or goosebumps.
Exactly. The body's quieter, signals that get missed in the rush. The practice of sacred slowing encourages this.
Which involves breathing together again.
Starting there, yes. Then touching with eyes before hands, delaying physical contact, allowing silence to be part of the connection, not something awkward to fill.
It feels like it's tapping into something older, maybe more ritualistic.
I think so. The book talks about desire's ancient language involving ritual, attention, slowness. And it lands on this beautiful idea. Presence itself might be the ultimate aphrodisiac.
Wow, okay. So looking back at this whole inner union part, it really lays a deep foundation, doesn't it?
It really does. It's about cultivating this inner landscape. First, awareness, sensuality grounded in presence, clear boundaries, the power of the mind and heart, and embracing slowness. It's all internal work, essentially.
Before you even get to the dance of lovers, the interaction part, it sets the stage internally.
Precisely. These principles are the bedrock upon which everything else in the book, the partner dynamics, the specific practice is built. Understanding this inner dimension is key.
So the big takeaway seems to be that this modern Kama Sutra is inviting us to see intimacy not just as an act, but as a state of being, mindful, present, respectful.
Connected on multiple levels, physical, yes, but also emotional, mental, even you could say spiritual, depending on your perspective.
It definitely gives us and our listeners a lot to think about regarding our own relationship with, well, all of this pleasure, sensuality, connection.
We've really just skimmed the surface of this first part of Kama Sutra Simplified, but hopefully it sparks some interest. It offers a very different, maybe more holistic lens.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening, drawing from this. What if you considered one small moment, maybe today or tomorrow, where you could intentionally bring in a sacred pause or just a touch of intentional slowness?
Yeah, just one small moment in an interaction, maybe even just with yourself while making tea or something, and just notice. Notice what shifts, what you feel when you deliberately slow down and pay attention.
It could be subtle, but potentially quite profound. And perhaps reflect on which of these whispers we talked about, pleasure as presence, sacred sensuality, mapping the body, the power of the mind, the sacred no, the beauty of stillness, which one resonates most for you right now?
That self-reflection is powerful. And of course, if this has piqued your interest, the book itself, Kama Sutra Simplified, a modern take, clearly offers a much deeper exploration.
Definitely worth checking out if this conversation sparked something. It's an ongoing exploration, really.
Always. Thanks for diving in today.
Thank you, and thank you for listening.